As we know, there's lots of anxiety that centers around the interview and the possible questions that could come up in the interview. And the question that tends to cause the most amount of anxiety is the money question. And we can prepare for it and have everything planned that we possibly can. I'm flexible, I'm looking for the right opportunity, I am not making this move because of money, and if I am the candidate of choice, I would just hope that you make me a fair and reasonable offer. Well, that's all well and good and practice, but unfortunately, as we know, it doesn't always go that way. The money question falls into the category of what I like to call the trick questions. Now, this does not mean by any way, shape, or form that the interviewer is trying to trick the interviewee. However, there are certain questions where we're darned if we do and we're darned if we don't. For instance, in the money question, if you give an answer that is too high, then you knock yourself out of consideration. If you give an answer that's too low, then you put yourself in a situation where you're not up to be able to negotiate any higher because you've already given a number that's lower. And if you backtrack on that, now you look like a liar. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 there. So the whole point of trying to answer this question as honestly as you possibly can, while still giving yourself enough time to do some further evaluation on what you feel would be appropriate for the role and where feel like you'd be willing to give and take, is to give an answer that's intangible, which is why I said before, I'm flexible, I'm looking for the right opportunity, I am not making this move because of money. But, like I said before, sometimes you get pushed. Now the reason for this is not the hiring manager, but a lot of times talent acquisition. Their goal is, their objective in their job is to contain costs. So in order to contain costs, which keeps their job, is to be able to get a bottom dollar from a candidate. Now this is not always to your advantage, and a lot of times you haven't even thought of a dollar amount at that time, or you don't know enough about the job to be able to value what would be appropriate. So you may not want to give that number, and they want you to give a number. So the best way to approach it is from the aspect of you really just don't know. If somebody were to ask you how many cans of paint are in the entire state of Florida, you may not know the answer, and of course you can extrapolate and come up with some guesses, but you don't know the exact answer. And many times when people ask you a question that you don't know the answer to, you simply say, I don't know, I'd have to do some research and get back to you on that. So with that perspective, the best way to answer the question is, I just don't know. I don't know enough about the job. I don't know enough about what would be involved from my point of view, although those aren't the reasonings that you want to share. What you want to share is that you haven't actually had a chance to figure it out, because you know in your heart of hearts that if you found the right job, you're confident as can be that that employer would offer you a fair and reasonable offer. Now remember the 4 points that I said to answer the question with. I'm flexible, I'm looking for the right opportunity, and I'm not making this move because of money, or not going to take a certain job offer because of a certain dollar figure. If you fill in the candidate of choice, I'm sure you'll make me a fair and reasonable offer. So what you're conveying to them is that you really haven't got around to figuring out what that dollar figure is, because you're very confident in your own abilities. Put it this way, people who are very defensive about a particular topic, there's usually a red flag. And when people get defensive or start negotiating or start hedging or start posturing themselves in a certain way about a particular topic, it's usually because they anticipate there's going to be some sort of issue. Now, if you're the type of person that approaches it from the aspect of, well, I don't anticipate that there's going to be an issue, it's usually because you're confident in your own abilities And you've always been in a situation where you get paid what you're worth. Now, if you get paid what you're worth, that means that you're a prime candidate. And your only goal in the interview process is to sell yourself to make them feel that you are a prime candidate. And having confidence in your own abilities is the absolute best thing you can do to sell yourself in an interview. So in one particular instance, I had a candidate in for a job, and it was almost like a standoff with human resources. We need a number. I'm sorry, but we need a number. We have to have a number. And he thought about for a second. He acted as if he was doing some calculations in his head, and as if this is actually the first time he's ever even thought about this scenario, and said, you know, I don't know. I'm going to have to sleep on it. So then he was able to at least get himself out of that situation. And the next time the scenario came up where he was asked to give his input about a certain dollar figure that this position would pay, it was when there was an offer in front of him. Now, obviously, when there's an offer in front of you, now you can chat about what fair and reasonable actually means. Now is your opportunity to take your intangible to a tangible. So again, just to summarize, the whole purpose of an interview is to sell yourself. And this money question is really an opportunity for not only for you to be absolutely 100% completely honest about what you feel in your heart. And by the way, if you're not flexible, if you're not looking for the right opportunity, if you're not making this move because of money, I promise you, you're in a job search for all the wrong reasons. And if you don't feel that an offer will be fair and reasonable, then you have a little soul searching to do about your own confidence and your own abilities. So the whole idea is to present yourself for what's truly in your heart from that emotional side of where you're coming from and where you're approaching the job search. And the rest will actually happen. Offer comes on the table, fine, you can negotiate, but in the meantime, you're selling yourself as a candidate who is looking for a job for all the right reasons. And should they be lucky enough to hire you, then you would be working there for all the right reasons. Therefore, you'd be a long-term benefit to the company, and therefore the salary that they come to you with would be fully justified. Thanks. I hope this helps, and keep in touch.